All right, all right. All right, let's see. All right, let me know in the comments here if you're able to hear me smoothly. I My internet service here is not too great, so that's why I want to know if I'm able to be heard or not because hell as far as I know, perhaps maybe the service might cut off and you might hear like static or something. So if somebody can let me know, I'd appreciate that. So, um I'll keep my eye on the comment here. Um, this is not going to be too long of a stream here tonight, and the panel is closed. I will not be bringing anybody up here on stage with me, but I will leave the questions and comment section open. If anybody has a question or subject of conversation, you're welcome to provide that down below. Um, but yeah, it's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now, man. A lot of stuff going on, like especially in the last, couple of days here with this whole situation between Israel and Iran, kicking back up. We all knew that they were at war with one another, over the last, how many months. But over the last month or so, the conflict between the two like died down. I mean, again, don't get me wrong, they were still at war with one another, of course, but the attacks were not as frequent as they just picked up to be. So now over there, nobody knows what the hell, to think right now. Right? Nobody knows what the hell to think, because over the last like what, 4 days now, almost 5 days, um, shooting, hundreds, if not thousands of rockets back and forth at one another right now. So, you know, nobody knows where the hell this is going. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we're clearly in uncertain times right now. And anybody that can't realize that that person's just delusional, as what's this dude, just like Anger from Inside Out 2 said, right? She is just delusional, right? So anybody who can't see what's going on, anybody who's not paying attention, anybody who thinks that we're not in serious times, that person is just delusional, as Anger would say. Lion of Judah asked, "Do you think America will get involved and start drafting us over there?" Um, hell, I don't know, man. I don't. I mean, if you were to ask me personally, I don't think so. But nobody knows at this point. Hey, how you doing? Propagate. Propagate said I can hear you. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Yeah, that brother's cool. I went on Propagate's channel a handful of times before. He does a good podcast over there. I recommend checking out. But y'all might have noticed the title of the stream, which, in fairness, is subject to change. But I entitled it like, rebranding and, Dead's channels and, stuff like that. So basically, what I did is yesterday I took like 2 hours out of my day to go on both of my different accounts and I just went through the subscriptions. And like literally, I had like, what, like 300 channels that I'm subscribed to on like each of them. So I went through and I deleted the channels who are like dead. What do I mean by that? I mean they have no videos and no live streams in like, 8 months to a year. And I was surprised how many dead channels I found in my subscription list. So I literally unsubscribed from like 100 plus channels on each of the um different accounts. So and one thing about it that I found funny is literally like 70% of the channels that I unsubscribed to were like old GMS channels, right? Channels who, used to be part of GMS, but then for whatever reason, they, are not anymore. It's like, wow, people must be dropping out of some of these camps out here. I found some for like ex-Sakari ones as well, and stuff like that. So apparently, like these guys either get kicked out of these schools or leave the schools and just totally abandon their YouTube account and their followers on there. You know what I'm saying? It's like they don't even continue to do the Lord's work by putting up epistles on YouTube or highways and hedges or even live streams. They just totally stop out of the blue and just like what do they do? Like go back to the Christian church or something? Propagate said, um, live every Monday at 5:15 p.m. Yeah, that's a stream. Check out his channel. He goes live every Monday, which actually is today. So he'll be live later in the evening. Now, I don't think I'll be able to stop by because I got to be up for a while, so I probably won't even be awake at 5 or whatever that is. But if anybody else wants to stop by there, you're welcome to do that. Let me see. Let me grab a drink real quick. Yeah, so one thing I also tried to do is not only the subscriptions. Not only did I get rid of like 100 plus of those, but I also tried to get rid of the watch later history. But for some reason, I'm not sure why, YouTube doesn't have a button for you to delete like your entire watch later list. Like you're only allowed to delete videos you watched from it. But I'm thinking to myself, it's like, it wouldn't hurt, a hundreds of billions of dollar organization like YouTube to literally just add a extra setting onto YouTube where we're able to delete the entire um, watch later list. Like for Christ's sake, they let you what's the word I'm looking for. They let you delete your watch history, right? You can delete all your watch history, but you can't delete all of the watch later history. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't get the logic behind that. His brother said I've been doing maintenance on my computer. That's why I haven't been live that much. I mean, I mean, hell, man. To be honest with you, you've been live more than a lot of other people on YouTube. Shit, you're one of the most frequent live streams that I see on YouTube compared to some of these other dudes. But boy, I got to give you credit, Mr. Lion of Judah. I saw your debate with Perry Green the other day, and man, that was brutal. I mean, that was oh boy. I mean, you could tell that dude was getting talk about death by a thousand cuts, for lack of better terms, right? Everywhere you look, this guy was getting cut with them scriptures, with them skibbies, right? This boy was getting diced up. The doctrine this guy has more holes in it than Swiss cheese at this point. But you know what the bizarre thing is? His whole audience there, they'll just blindly believe and follow whatever this moron is telling them. I mean, for Christ's sake, the dude literally said that he is equal to Christ. I kid you not, the dude literally said that he is equal to Christ. It's like, shit, if any other pastor or religious teacher was to say they're equal to Christ, they'd get all this backlash and ridicule, but this dude can sit there and say that and wear his Pornhub t-shirt and smoke his cigarettes and say bullshit like that, and nobody seems to care. Like Lion of Judah, I don't know if you noticed, but if you look closely, the t-shirt that he has during the stream with you, he took the hub logo and just put the word Bible in it, and he's literally selling those or handing them out for free to people. I kid you not. Like, this dummy literally goes out on the streets like how GMS does, and he'll set up like a whole booth and tell people, if you do a Bible study with him, he'll give you a free Bible, some money, and a T-shirt. Which, off of the a face value, doesn't seem bad. But if you listen to the message he's trying to teach people, that's where you see where the flaw comes in. Because what his doctrine is and what he's teaching people when he goes out to socialize on the street is he's teaching people, hey, look, just believe in Jesus and believe he paid for everything and that nothing you do in your life is considered sin. So you can go and rob the store, you can go and take your neighbor's wife, you can do anything you want in Jesus' name. As long as you believe, it's not bad for you. It's like, wow. I mean, it's so bizarre to me, the doctrines that people are teaching out here. Said I'm replacing my 100 gigabyte drive with a terabyte. Yeah, I mean, I don't use computers, man. I don't use computers, which is ironic because some days I watch like 3 hours of setup wars. I looked that up on YouTube, right? So it's like all of these, computer setups and desktop setups and and all that, like gaming setups. But I don't even own a damn computer, right? How I game, I got just a 10 or 15-year-old TV and a PlayStation 4, and that's my setup. I've had a couple of computers over the course of the years, but I've never been a big computer person. Like, say, for instance, I remember back in elementary school, there used to be computer day on Friday where, instead of going to, outside, playground or PE time or music class, instead of that, you could have a computer time, once a week, right? Like every different class gets a different day to do each activity, right? So our turn was on Friday to get the computers. And man, I hated doing computers. And most other kids enjoy those computers, right? To go on, starfall.com or applejacks.com or, other stuff like that. Um, but I remembered that I would always hide underneath the table and my uncle would have to fish me out so so they could send me to school, right? But I would be hiding under that table because I don't want to go play the computers at school. I don't know why I had such a dislike for the computers, but shit, even to this very day, I don't like computers. Now, I wouldn't be against having one because, as I said, I've had them before, but personally, I don't really use that as much as I would a phone or a tablet. Like, say, for one reasonable example, like it's much more difficult to get a virus on a phone or a tablet compared to a computer. Like, literally, I kid you not, every computer I had, I always got some type of virus on it. And sometimes you can get them just by getting Gmails that you might open up that might contain it in it, or go into some websites, or you can get a virus on the computer in hundreds of different ways. So me personally, I just use a phone or a tablet. That's just what I've always been into. MMA Paradise. Hey, how you doing? Twitter asks, what's your opinion on the day of Pentecost? People spoke in tongues. Why was it given? Was it to preach the gospel to the Gentiles to be saved? Do you know what chapter that's in? What book and chapter that's in? So I could relook over that. As far as speaking in tongues, I'd say that just means speaking different languages, is what I'd say. Like, say, for instance, the apostles, if they spoke to somebody of a foreign language, the Holy Spirit would be able to give them the ability to speak in that spirit, or excuse me, in that language that the other people speak, so that they could understand what each other are talking about. So I just say speaking in tongues just means that they were able to speak the other languages of the people that they themselves might not have known. So that's what I'd say. I don't think it's like how you see in these churches, somebody speaking a bunch of gibberish and nobody knows what they're talking about. Hell, that might be, a demon on that person, saying all type of, of nonsense. Who the hell knows, man? Yeah, yeah, that's what Perry says, right? He said, "It's okay as long as you believe Christ did the work for you." But here's what I wish you would have asked him, though. If I was in your shoes, I would have asked him this one question that would have completely knocked his socks off and, made him co-blue on the floor. The question I would have asked is, okay, so he's saying that you don't have to do the work because Jesus did it for you. But here's the kick in the balls. Here's the knockout. So if that's the case, why did Christ tell his followers to keep the commandments if he did it for them perfectly? Like, say, for an example, at John 14:15, it says, "If you love me, keep the commandments." Well, why the hell would it say that if he kept it perfectly for us? Just as Perry said, "Oh, he did it for us, so we don't got to do it." But why the hell did he tell his followers to do it if he did it perfectly for them? Or another kick in the balls is, what about Matthew 19:16 on down? That rich young ruler who came to Christ, he asked him, "What good thing do I do to gain eternal life?" And Christ told him, "If you want to enter into eternal life, you got to keep the commandments." Why Christ not just tell him, "Believe on me," and that's it? Christ literally told the guy, if you want to enter into life, you got to keep those commandments. Like, I mean, again, I think it's so clear that, this guy, Perry Green, he's not lost in the sauce. He's drowning in the sauce, right? He's not lost in the sauce. He's drowning in that sauce. And I think that's abundantly clear to see. Brother asked current news of Israel versus Iran, any prophetic behind the scenes, the third temple, etc. Yeah, I spoke about it a little earlier. You showed up a little late, but yeah, in recap, it certainly looks like, there's a war that's going to be taking place over there in the, upcoming weeks and months. I mean, that's all I can say at this point, man. Hell, like, I'm not going to sit there like how Shrek would and tell you, "Oh, well, absolutely, this or that's going to happen on this or that day." Like still, even to this day, there's still dummies going around on YouTube telling you, or telling their audience that, "Oh, well, I had a dream and Jesus returns on September the 7th, 2025." And then when that doesn't happen, then they'll be like, "Oh, well, it's actually next year." Because, like, isn't this getting a little old now? Like, haven't y'all been literally on the internet for like 15 or 20 years, giving these bullshit predictions that literally never come true? I mean, come on. Does anybody really believe these morons anymore? I mean, come on. It's so obvious that, brother asked, "Do you remember Moby from Starfall?" And that, well, Moby wasn't from Starfall. He was from Brain Pop, right? Brain Pop, look that up. But yeah, I know what you're talking about, man. I always liked that. I always liked the Brain Pop, right? I always preferred the Brain Pop website compared to Starfall any day. I forget the girl's name from there, right? The black girl that he was with. What shit, was she black or white? I don't even remember. She might even be Asian, right? Like a mix between them. I forget her name too, but yeah, I remember Moby, right? The robot. But yeah, Brain Pop was pretty good. It's actually pretty educational on there. You learn about a lot of a lot of stuff. And believe it or not, there's actually a couple of like band episodes on there that are actually on YouTube that you can watch, but they didn't upload them on the original website. Hey, brother said you bringing my nostalgia. Yeah, it's funny. I actually was on YouTube and I was like, you know what, let's just look up Starfall. Let's see what they got on there. And to my surprise, they actually had like a whole website, like, well, linked to a website and a whole YouTube channel dedicated to Starfall. I was like, oh shit, I didn't know that. Haven't went on there in like, damn, what is that like? What was that like? Hell, I don't even know how many years it's been since I've been on there. Not that I need to go on there because it's all just like elementary stuff on there. But yeah, I remember using that. Bear with me for a second. Yeah, well, again, in that conversation that you did with Perry, he was unprofessional, and at the end he kicked you out when you guys were going to go into a different subject, right? Like he says that that Jerusalem is mystery Babylon. And we of course teach that it's actually America, so you were going to bring that up to him, but he was like, whatever, man. We don't got time for that. But then, after he kicks you out, it continues another 20 minutes of the stream talking about, garbage and bullshit. You know what I'm saying? But apparently he don't have time to talk about the Bible, though. Okay? Like, I find that to be pathetic. And I've challenged the dummy on it before, but, he don't really like to talk about those things. All he wants to talk about is, well, Jesus fulfilled everything. It's like, okay, like say for instance, like can't we just agree to disagree on that and then talk about like a prophetic chapter or something or like a different topic? Like say for instance, I've offered a couple years ago, but long before you were around, I offered to do a debate about reincarnation and hell with Perry Green, and he's like, well, whatever, whatever. And then, when I bring it up to him when I join the stream, he's like, well, I don't want to talk about that. Well, why don't you want to talk about that? Like, say for instance, was that First Peter 3:15? It said, "Be ready always to give an answer unto anybody who asks you the reason of your belief." So, like, why would you not want to be, in a discussion about those type of topics? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't get that. Basically, he's just a knucklehead who knows like free Bible verses, and basically that's it. Basically all he knows is, well, Jesus paid for it all, and well, that's it. He doesn't really know anything beyond that. I find that just to be, sad and pathetic. It's funny, like the dude will sit there and say that you're living in sin, but yet the dude's literally there, shaving clean. The dude got a tattoo on his arm. The dude is shaved face, looking clean like a baby's bottom, and smoking a cigarette and weed. But he don't sin though, right? He's the guy who doesn't sin though. I mean, come on, this is stupid. Right? This is just stupid. I can't believe there's people on here who actually follow that numbskull and the pure BS that he's on there teaching people. It's really, really just pathetic to me. Okay, let me see. I'm checking something in the back real quick. Yo, how's it going? How's it going? That's that cat who called in a couple days ago when I did that last stream about I believe we talked about was Apostle Paul inspired or not. Yeah, he's a cool guy. He's a cool guy. I don't got a problem with him. Said, isn't it late in America right now? Well, where are you at? All in y'all. Where are you at? Apparently, you're not in the country. Oh, excuse me. I apologize. I remember you said that you're in Egypt. My bad. Yeah, that brother's in Egypt. What time is it over in Egypt right now? It's like, is it like afternoon time or something like that? But yeah, over here to answer your question, over here in the States, it's 3 a.m. I'm like near New York, right? So that's the time area I'm in. So it's at basically exactly 3 a.m. right now. No, that's he said, yeah, I'm in Egypt. It's 10 a.m. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, you're the first person I've talked to from Egypt. I've never really talked to somebody else from Egypt before. I mean, I saw like a couple travel videos to Egypt before, and of course the pyramids and stuff like that I've seen from the country. Never really talked to somebody from there except for that one dude in the comment section here. Um, but an interesting thing to mention though is I was actually at the store yesterday. I had to pick up a couple summer clothing because I was short on clothing. Well, before I mention the part I brought it up for, let me just say I've been scoping out the store for like 2 months now to see what they have. So when I have a couple of dollars, I can come back and get a handful of clothing. And of course, I found a couple that I wanted to get. So I figured, okay, well, it'll be there for me. And of course, what do you know? The times I went and didn't have the money, they had to close there. But of course, yesterday when I go and have the money, they don't have the colors I want and they don't have the size that I want. It's like, okay, so I gotta look around the store to find some other clothing I like. My style is I like red, blue, and black. I don't like gray or green. Orange is okay, but blue, red, and black are basically the colors I go for. So I got like two new blue shirts, couple black ones, a couple red ones. But the interesting part that I'm bringing it up is the blue shirt was actually made in Egypt. I was thinking to myself, like, wow, this thing was made in Egypt and they shipped it over here just to get $6 out of it. Well, to be fair, perhaps it was on sale, but as far as I know, I don't have any other clothing that's from Egypt besides the two blue shirts that I picked up. But then, it sparked my curiosity, so I looked on all the other clothing I got to see where stuff was from. The two were from Egypt, three were from Bangladesh, two were from Morocco, and the rest were from China. So it's weird how all of the clothing's like made around the world and then just is put in like one shop to be sold together. Let's see. He said, I've watched some of the old live streams with you and Shreg. They're entertaining. Yeah, yeah, I get what you're saying. And by the way, um, RIP to our friend Shreg. Hell, nobody knows what's happened to that dude. But if he's still walking the earth somewhere, hopefully he is doing okay today, right? Hopefully the man's doing okay. That dude basically left because he made a couple false prophecies like, oh, Jesus return on this day or that day, then it don't happen. And he was like, hey, well, you know, if it doesn't happen this last time, then I'm just gonna leave. And it didn't happen. But we tried to warn the guy. It's like, hey, look, man, maybe you should, chill out for a little bit, and stop making all these garbage predictions. Like, hey, look, you're not gonna sit there and claim that when Christ is coming back or the time period's going to happen because the Bible says that nobody knows. Shit, Christ even said he don't even know. Not even the angels in heaven, but only the Father knows. So how the hell does little Shreg know if not even Christ or the angels know? Shit, I'm surprised Peregrine's not going around claiming that he knows. That would seem like something that he would say. Then we got this other numbskull, Samuel Owen, going around believing that he is the Jesus, right? The moron sitting there saying that he is Jesus today, but he is an Edomite. He literally claims that he is an Edomite, and then he quotes what is that? Isaiah 63, right? This is him. He claims that he is this Jesus in Isaiah 63, right? Him that comes from Basra with dyed garments, right? From Edom or whatever. Oh, that's him. That's Jesus. I'm thinking to myself, well, how the hell? How the hell could you be Jesus and admit you're an Edomite if the Bible says in Hebrews 7:14 that it's evident that Christ came from the tribe of Judah? So how the hell could you admittingly be an Edomite, but then claim that you're Christ if the Bible literally says that Christ is from Judah? It's mind blowing to me that anybody watches that gullible clown. That dude's like literally a Kevin Wendell Crumb from the movie Split. That's basically what that guy is. He has all these mental disorders and personality disorders. 1 minute he's happy, 1 minute he's sad. 1 minute he's Samuel Owen, next minute he's Jesus, next minute he's Esau, next minute he doesn't know what he is. Yeah, that dude's a total fruitcake. Let me see. I said, yeah, because a lot of the timelines he followed ended up passing. Yeah, yeah, I hear you. Tried to warn these guys that they were getting a little bit ahead of themselves. I've known Shreg since I was like 17, or actually 16. But I've known the guy since I want to say 2018. I've known the guy for. Right, so I've known the dude for like what? What is that? Definitely a handful of years there. And at the start, he was really teaching like basically one on one with what we're teaching. The only difference would be like the virgin birth. As far as I know, that'd be the difference. But then in like the maybe 2022 or 2023, he started to come up with these sequence events that he started teaching on YouTube, and that's when he started going downhill. Like, the dude was like, oh, every chapter in the Bible is just a prelude to a sequence. So we try to find like a sequence in every chapter of the Bible that correlates with what he's saying. It's just stupid. And then, of course, the main point of contention is when Corolla happened in 2020. And that rooster juice, read between the lines, because I got to use coded language here, but that juicy juice that everybody was getting. They were saying, oh, that's MOTB Rev 1316. That's the thing. It's like, nah, guys, that's not it. It doesn't match what it's saying. And I'd actually know another good dude we had on our podcast, frequent, whose name was Bible Defender. And by the way, it's not this guy Drew in the Discord. That it's a different guy named Bible Defender. But he was on board with what I'm saying. But then over the course of months, he started to go with what Shreg was saying. And I haven't seen the guy in like maybe 8 months. We haven't talked. I mean, I don't got an issue with the dude. I don't know if maybe I don't know what happened to the guy. Hope he's doing okay. Hope he's still watching out there. Maybe he don't got a phone. Maybe he's I don't know what happened to Bible Defender, but hopefully he's doing okay wherever he is. The dude was close with me, but then he maybe he went back to Christianity or just, was busy with work. I mean, this guy was close. Like, say, for instance, when he had his son, literally the same time he's in the emergency room, he's sending me pictures of his son, and asking, what should his name be? You know what I'm saying? So he went from that to, not really talking to me. And again, I don't think we had like a falling out or anything like that. I think he's just busy with life. And the truth is, a lot of the guys that we hang out with on stream, are busy and, don't really got time to do streams anymore. Like Jay's doing his thing, LOP's doing his thing. Rudy doesn't even know what the hell he is at this point or what the hell he's doing. And, hell, Shreg is going, Ridge is in college. Um, there's a lot of other people out there I could mention that, I don't know what they're doing right now. But, but yeah, the truth is, I remember somebody a couple months ago asked like a depressing comment. They were like, well, yeah, guys, what happened to those streams that y'all would do like every night with, like 10 people on there, having chats for hours on end. And I told the guy, hey, look, man, I try to bring some of them streams back when I can, but, you know, some things are changing, and some things are for better, some things are for worse. Some people fell out the truth, some people came into it. Some people start to come to streams more frequent, some stop coming at all. You know, it's everybody's situation is different right now. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody's situation is different. So hey, the streams never stopped, right? The streams never stop and will never stop. But I can't control who comes here and who doesn't. It's everybody's free will to decide if they want to, you know, come watch here or not. He said, "Nice. All everything here is stupid cheap." Yeah, I believe you. I believe you. Mason Jesus asks, "How do I know whether I am an Israelite or not?" Um, what I'll tell you is go on Google, look up the 12 tribes chart, right? The One West 12 tribes chart. If you find yourself on there, we'll tell you what tribe you're from, like, your nationality or ethnicity. If you find your people on there, it will tell you what tribe you correlate with. And if you're not on there, well, there's still a chance that you could be an Israelite. If you can sincerely believe what's being taught, then there's a good chance that you're a descendant from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It tells you in Daniel, the 12th chapter, that the wicked would do wickedly and none of the wicked would understand. So if you can sincerely believe, well, it bears record to some degree or another that you're most likely an Israelite. Said, yo, homie, you're streaming hella late. I mean, I don't, is it really that late? It's only 3 a.m. I mean, I don't know how late it is in your part of the country because he's over in California. But I mean, don't get me wrong, 3 a.m. is late. Shit, anybody remember those 3 a.m. challenges on YouTube over the last like decade now? Right? Oh, something bad will happen, at 3 a.m., right? Like you paranormal, which to be fair, I probably shouldn't say a whole lot about that right now because I do believe in that type of stuff, but not necessarily at a certain time. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, let's see. It ain't late for you, man. It's 12 a.m. Yeah, what are you saying that this is late? It's only 12 for you, my guy. Uh, let's see. But yo, if there's any questions or comments in the chat, this is the time to ask. Man, I found a good deal on these green tea iced teas. I was over at Walgreens earlier, and I happened to see a deal they're doing for the last maybe like couple days. You get these. Hold on, let me check a second. What is the ounce of these? It's like 20-ounce can, right? Those big 20-ounce cans. You get 3 cans for $2. Should somebody do the math on that? How much change each would be. Think to myself, I was like, damn, you're basically getting one for free then, right? You're paying $1 for two, and you get the third one for free. So hell, I had to grab a handful of those things. Oh, well, I'm not gonna put that on screen. He said YouTube striked me for a stream I did 2 years ago for a blank information. I can't use that word on here. Yeah, I hear you, man. It seems unfair how they're going to like old live streams or videos and flagging you for things that you said like 3 years ago. It's like, well, if y'all really had a problem with it, like, why wouldn't you strike it the first week or first month? Like, why are you coming here, 1,000 days later or, however many days later now? Oh, there's a deer in front of me here. I'm not going to flip the camera to show, but yeah, we got a lot of deers over here. I'll let that pass. I won't be too loud. Not that they can hear me anyway, because I'm in a closed area, but you never know. Their ears are more sensitive. Yeah. Yeah, all in, yeah, I would claim to be. I claim to be an Issacharite, is what I claim. Oh shit! And would you look at that? There's a fox on my left hand side as well. It's odd to see both of them at the same time. So what are you rebranding? Um, well, I'm not rebranding the name, right? I'm staying with End Time Teacher ETT. I'm not changing that brand. But what I am considering doing is changing my Gmail, right? I might change out the Gmail that people publicly contact me at. Like I'll say for an example, like how I have this plaque here, right? You can contact me at this Gmail. In the coming weeks, I might change it to something else. He said, I also found out that if more than one video gets striked in the same day, only one video will give you a strike and not the others, so that's good. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know about that. Yeah, I didn't know about that, my guy. Yo, I gotta go on mute for 1 minute. I'll be right back. All right, my bad. My bad, my bad. Let me see. Are y'all able to hear me? Yeah, yeah, sorry about that. I just had to go on mute real quick. That deer I mentioned a couple minutes ago, hell, it looped back around. It was standing like, 5 foot from the window by me looking at me. So I was like, well, maybe I should just be quiet so it doesn't get scared. And then, eventually we'll just go back away and, not bother me. So do excuse that. Let me see what's going on. His brother asked, how do you know that white people come from Esau? David was white too, was red too. Well, I know what you're referring to when it calls him Ruddy. Well, Ruddy has multiple different meanings for it. Like, say, for instance, I believe the verse is First Samuel 17:42, if I'm not mistaken, it's either First Kings 17:42 or First Samuel 17:42, where David gets called Ruddy by Goliath, right? So it just means that he was like youthful, right? Or he was appealing to look upon. It doesn't mean that he had a particular skin color, just was another reference for him being young and fair to look upon. Like it wouldn't make sense for Goliath to call David a young and red, right? Like that wouldn't make sense in the usage of the word. Right, like say for instance, sometimes there can be differences between how modern words interpret versus how they're used in the Bible. Like, say, for instance, they might tell you that today abhor is another word for hate, but that's not according to the Bible because the Bible says there's a difference between the two. Say, for instance, I believe that's a first, what is that? Psalms 119, verse 163. I'll say that again. Psalms 119, verse 163. It says, I hate and abhor liars, but your law is my delight. So that proves that to hate or abhor are two separate things according to the Bible. So people try to bring up, I believe that, what is that, Deuteronomy 23 and 7 or something like that, where it says, thou shalt not abhor an Edomite. And they'll try to say, well, see, it says you're not supposed to hate the Edomite. It's like, well, that's not what it means, because abhor means something different according to the Bible. It just means you're not supposed to treat them badly. And we're not treating anybody badly out here. Like, say, for instance, I believe there's Edomites and rainbow people who live on my street. That doesn't mean that I won't wave to them if they wave to me when they're sitting on their porch, or it doesn't mean that I'm, slicing their tire because I don't like them, or it doesn't mean I'm, doing anything to them. Now, hey, if they ask me how my day is going, I'll be polite and ask them the same thing back. Now, it doesn't mean I'll hang out with those people because they're living in sin and they're part of the unrighteous. But that doesn't mean that I'm not abhorring them. I'm not treating them badly. So yeah, we're not going against the scripture there. We're not treating Edomites or Egyptians or anyone else badly. Like, say, for instance, like the one brother in the chat, they're all in for Yah. He's Egyptian. I'm not treating him badly. You know what I'm saying? So just use that as an example. So, people just don't know the meaning of words. It's just what it comes back to. Hey, how you doing, my guy, Luke? How are things over there in Australia? I seen the other day there was that mass casualty event that happened at what was it, a college or a school over there in Australia? I saw that news, but other than that, I don't know what's going on over there. I'm only gonna go for like 10 more minutes, 10 or 15 more minutes here, because I do have to get going. But yeah, 10 or 15 more minutes if there's any more questions or comments. Now's the time to ask. Yeah, Jay's right. Said Ruddy doesn't mean red. Yeah, exactly. Ruddy doesn't mean red. Well, all I ask you for that, if you want like deeper into that, I mean, you can look up Israelite breakdowns of it, and they'll explain to you the usage of the word ruddy. You know what I'm saying? So there's been plenty of videos I've seen over the years. If you just type on Google, like, say for instance, you go on YouTube, look up GMS Ruddy, or Sakari Ruddy, or ISUPK Ruddy, Hebrew Israelite Ruddy explained. You'll find dozens and dozens upon dozens of videos that explain the position of how ruddy doesn't mean red. So that I would recommend you do that in your free time, and see where that takes you. Right, that's a good point. So there's a lot of verses that point out King David as extremely handsome. Yeah, good point, good point. Right, so Goliath, when he looked upon him, he was just calling David, young and handsome. Because David, or excuse me, Goliath, I meant, right? Goliath was calling David young and handsome. Right, Goliath didn't want to fight David. Right, calls him a stripling. Right, because, he wasn't called to be part of the army because he was under 20. Right, he was under 20. He could have been 16, 17. It doesn't say how old that David was, but he was under 20 because he wasn't called for military service. According to Numbers, the first chapter, I believe it's Numbers 118, but it says that you have to be a 20 in order to be counted in the army of Israel, right? So David was under that. He wasn't called, to go into service, but he was there anyway. Let's see. He said the Labour Party won majority in Australia. Was it like voting time over there or something for another president? Yeah, I mean, all I'm gonna tell you, man, I gave you my understanding for the Ruddy. If you disagree, then you disagree. I gave you a couple sources to check out that will give you further information on the subject. So all I'll do is I'll tell you to look into that. Same thing with what I did when you came up here and asked about Paul, right? I pointed out multiple different avenues for why I'd say he is inspired, and you can take that and do what you will with that as well. Oh, and by the way, while you're listening, which I'm not bringing anybody up here because I got limited time, but you did say in the comments that you still believe that Paul's false. Could you give me like one or two reasons as to why you still cling to the belief that he was false? If you had to pick like one or two hard hitting points that you didn't bring up in our conversation about it. Let's see. Brother asked, do you watch Big Judah from California? I've never heard of I believe I heard of Big Judah, but I don't watch him. I've heard the name, but I don't watch the guy. Now, there's a lot of guys on YouTube I don't watch. Which it seems funny to say that because at the beginning I said I had 300 channels I'm subscribed to, but you only watch like maybe 20% of the channels you're subscribed to mostly. So I only watch like a limited amount of people. And he said, again, he claimed to be an apostle, talking about Paul here. No one calls him that. Revelation talks about those who call themselves apostles, but are not. Well, again, in response to that, I'd say that, well, Christ appeared to him in Acts 9 and literally claimed that he chose him to be a chosen vessel to teach unto the nation. So, I mean, I'd say that, that supports why he's an apostle, which again, apostle just is another abbreviation for a teacher, right? Or, like a leader in the faith. Same thing like a minister, right? A minister is just a different term for, a leader of a congregation or a gathering. He said that account was according to Paul. How do you know it wasn't the false Messiah that he saw? Well, what I'll say is, according to the Bible, the red letter is Christ's word, right? So if we're going to disregard Acts 9 when it uses red letter and say that's not reliable, well, then by what reasoning would we rely on Christ's words in the Gospels then? Couldn't that be fabricated if we're going to use that line of reasoning? And if it was a false entity that appeared to him, who would you suggest that that would be? Like, what other entity do you think that would be? He said what was the guy, Big Judah or something like that? He said he's a Hebrew Israelite but follows Jewish. I can't say all this stuff on here. Let me see. All right, follows the stuff as being stolen from Israelites. He says witchcraft is good and worships God and Christ and the Heavenly Mother. The Heavenly Mother? But who the hell does he say that the Heavenly Mother is? Let me guess. Is he talking about Mary? If I had to take a wild guess. Said I met him from his hippie woman a few years ago. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, from listening to what the cat's saying, or what you're saying about the dude, he definitely seems like a fruitcake. Doesn't know what the hell's going on. All right, well, hey, look, man, I'll tell you this. If you want the answers for all the questions, just rewatch the conversation that me and you did because all the stuff being brought up was literally addressed in that conversation. So if you want the answer for that, just rewatch the conversation because you asked me the same thing in there. That's what I'll tell you. But I do appreciate you being here and stopping by, though. And I got to close up in a couple minutes anyway. He said, I hate how some people think that an adult holding a child's hand is sexual, even though it is not. The world's getting worse. Yeah, it's bizarre out here. I think a lot of people are just overly paranoid. Like, say, for instance, like, you know, people consider it weird if you even talk to anybody under 18, right? It's considered to be weird to even have a conversation with anybody under that arbitrary 18. I just find that to be pathetic and childish. You can't even have a conversation. Like, say, for instance, you can't even text it like a 15 or 16-year-old on your phone, not even a sexual conversation, just on any random topic. Like, say, for instance, maybe you have, maybe you talk to somebody on Discord and you might ask them their fault about a sports event or something. Oh, that's, creepy and weird if they're under 18. It's pathetic. But the question should be asked is, well, why is 18 considered that golden standard though? Like say for instance, like why is 16 or 17 not considered to be grown? Like there is no difference between a person who's 16, 17, and 18. They're basically all the same. It's just a random arbitrary thing that somebody just randomly made up out of the blue one day. I'm working on a video. I'm going to entitle it The Cult of 18 because it is a worldwide phenomenon that's believed by like half the Earth's population. But nobody knows why they believe it, though. It's just a random arbitrary thing that some guy just made up one day, and everybody swears that it's true, but there's no science or biological talking points to defend the myth. It's just a random thing somebody just said and accepts, like an NPC, right? Everybody out here in the society acts like an NPC, and I just find that to be sad and pathetic as well. Yes, what do you make of the attacks of Israel and Iran? Is this the end of days? Um, I mean, as I said, man, I think it's just going to keep getting worse over there in that region. Certainly looks like it's going to be a start of a bigger event. But hey, nobody has a crystal ball to look through. Nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. Nobody knows what's going to happen next week. So hey, we're all just taking a shot in the dark, for lack of better terms, right? We're all just taking a guess as to what's going to happen. Nobody has that crystal ball to view through to be able to tell these things. Now, sure, of course, there's prophecies in the Bible that are true, but we ourselves don't have a crystal ball to look through to know exactly how these things unfold. But certainly something that we need to be keeping up with on the news. Like, say, for instance, when I get off of the stream here, I'm going to be checking out Canadian Prepper or his new channel called Prepper News. I recommend checking that out. Um, and the Enforcer is another good channel. Um, let's see, the Sun might give you some information. Jason A has some information. Full Spectrum Survival has some stuff on there. Let's see who else. I mean, there's a lot of other channels. I don't need to keep throwing names out there. Y'all can find the stuff by just looking on the internet. Right, right. It is ridiculous. It is a ridiculous thing to believe. About this whole 18 thing, right? Like everybody pretends that girls are innocent babies until they're 18. It's like, well, why is that the case? Nobody has any clue. It's just a random thing some dude just made up one day, and well, that's it. It's pathetic. Like, you can't tell me that, well, they're not grown like 6 months beforehand. If you believe that, you're just retarded. You're just believing that because somebody told you that. It's it's just nonsensical. But hey, gullible will be gullible. Hey, that's a good point. You said there are 20-year-olds that act like children. Yeah, that's true. People in their 20s who don't even know what gender they are, for Christ's sake. Yet there's 16-year-olds out here who are clearly more developmentally developed, and even at times more physically developed, even, than some people that are like 24, 25 out here. It's true. Oh, but they're kids, though. They're children. It's like, nah, that's not true. That's not according to the Bible, science, or biology. That's just according to a couple ignorant retards in the Congress who haven't even been able to see their balls since the 70s over their pod belly that they got. That's just what they randomly made up one day because, well, they don't even know. I mean, for Christ's sake, half of them don't even know what they had for dinner last night. But these are the men running the country. These are the men and women running the country. This is bullshit. Said most broads are total holes in high school. I see it. Yeah. And, the reason why they're like that is because they're a woman, right? They're not girls. They're not children. They're women. They have sexual needs that are biological. In the government, they're trying to keep girls in a girl-like mentality longer than what is biologically natural, right? It's not biologically natural for a girl that's 15, 16, 17 to be considered a child and, treated as a child. Beforehand, they're supposed to be taught, how to, do these womanly things so that by the time they're that age, they'd already know how to do it. At least this is how things were done back in the Bible days. And in many cultures on earth, even to this very day, they still do that, right? You raise them when they're young, right? How to do womanly, things compared to, getting a job and, growing a business or whatever. That's how women in the West over here are taught. But over in the East, they're not, that's not how they're raised, even to this day in many instances. Let's see. Well, I mean, that's not entirely true, man, because again, it's just randomly, arbitrarily made up. Like, I'll give you an example. Did you know that around the world, that, well, there's 197 countries on Earth, but each one of those countries has multiple different states or providences. So there's, say, 1,000 different age of consent laws around the world, and they range from as high as 21 to as low as 11. So the question must be, well, what one of those is correct? Obviously, one got to be right, and the 10 others have to be wrong. But the proof that it's fabricated and just arbitrarily decided by somebody is the fact that it varies from country to country or state to state. Like, say, for instance, America is in complete disagreement with itself. One part of the country believes it's 16, the other part of the country believes it's 18. It's like, okay, well, why is it divided against itself? Is it bad or is it not? Like why can't you all just come to an agreement? Which, by the way, even if they did come to an agreement, that wouldn't make that agreement true. I'm just pointing out the fact that everybody is in denial with their own country and doesn't even know anything for themselves. It's just really pathetic. But yeah, it's just factually true. A child is a person who hasn't hit sexual maturity yet, but an adult is a person who has. If you literally go on Wikipedia, look up the term adult, it will tell you there are two definitions of a adult. A adult can be a legal thing, right? It kind of can change by culture or nation that you go to. But the biological definition just means a person or an organism who has reached sexual maturity. That's what the biological definition is, according to Wikipedia. So biological is in line with nature and God's creation, but legal is just what a couple guys somewhere just randomly just made up out of the blue out of their opinions and feelings. So that needs to be taken into consideration. Whenever you quote something legal or illegal, you're just quoting something that some dude just randomly made up. So you're just acting like an NPC. My master told me this, so I believe it. It's like, okay, well, could the master be hiding something from you? Could they be lying to you? Could the master be wrong with his rules and regulations? The average American, hey, I'm free, but I'm a law-abiding citizen. It's like, okay, well, how can you be free but yet brag about that you're obedient to a master? That makes you stupid. That doesn't make you free. Yeah, they can. I've seen it. I've seen it out here. It happens. And it's just biological, right? It's just, again, trying to keep people in a over exaggerated, prolonged childlike state, which is not biologically natural. Like, say, for instance, I have a video coming out soon I already recorded but didn't release. It's about 30 minutes long. I entitled it Artificial Childhood. The childhood that people live today is artificially made up, right? Where they say, well, you're not grown until you've been alive for 18 years. It's like, okay, well, did you know that didn't exist for 99% of human history? Somebody just randomly, arbitrarily decided that 100 years ago. Like, seriously, look this up. If you do a Google search or a Wikipedia search for the word teen, you find out that the word teen was invented in the 1900s, right? So that would be the 20th century. It says it was made in the 1910s, but was not used in culture. Was not popular. Excuse my stutter, until the 40s. Right. So again, the whole concept of a teen or adolescent was only 100 years. So literally, for 99% of human history, there was no such thing as not being a grown up until you've been 18. But again, hey, you could tell people the truth, and they'll just don't want to hear it. I mean, hey, if someone wants to remain in ignorance, you're welcome to remain in ignorance. But don't get mad at me for, you know, stepping on your toes and showing you that you believe bullshit. You know what I'm saying? On for y'all said, I've heard the age of consent is when a girl gets her first period. Is according to scripture, is that true? Yes, that is true. If you read 1 Corinthians 7:36, it says, if any man thinks he behaves himself uncommonly towards his virgin, as long as she has passed the flower of her age, and need so require, let him do at his will. He sins not. Let him marry the flower of her age. In the Bible, a woman's period is called a flower. I'll give you an example. If you read Leviticus chapter 15, verse 24, it says, if a man lays with a woman and any of her flowers get upon him at all, he's unclean. Obviously, if you read the chapter in context, the flower's talking about a woman's menstrual cycle. And a bonus thing that needs to be mentioned, and in ancient times and medieval times, there was a term called flower of the age, which just means that, a girl starts her menstrual cycle. And they even show you this in some of these medieval TV shows like Game of Thrones or Vikings. Like, literally, I've seen from both of these TV shows, there's scenes where there's a girl who, now was on her period, and they were like, oh, well, you're flowering, right? Or in Vikings, a girl got her menstrual and she was considered to now be a woman, right? Now marriageable. So they're showing you the people who do these ancient TV shows and medieval TV shows, they do a incredible amount of research into what they put into these shows to make it accurate to the time period that it's designed after, right? So it shows that even they know, right? So the naysayers, are just don't know what's going on. I mean, that's all I can tell you. Yo, what's going on, Galapagos? Long time no see, my guy. Hope you're doing well. It's unfortunate he joins in late because I do got to close up in 5 minutes. But hey, you're welcome to listen to the rest of the stream from earlier. But glad to see you, Galapagos. He said, "Dude, ETT, I saw a video in my feed the other day about the uh, what is this? Bulgarian village in Romania. Both the men and women were getting married off at 15, 16. Yeah, I believe I watched a video that you are talking about. You talking about the one put up by the Indigo Traveler? It was from Romania. So I'm pretty sure we watched the same video. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. And it just shows you that it's still practiced in many different cultures on Earth today. And again, it is in line with the Bible, so again, I get tired of seeing everybody make fun of Islam about, oh, Muhammad married a young bride. It's like, okay, maybe he did, but let's not pretend that people in the Bible didn't get married under 18. And again, according to the WHO, inside joke, right? According to, as Shrek would say, Job 9:24, right? Oh, he covers the face of the wicked. If not, where and who is he? Inside joke, right? According to the WHO, World Health Organization, they say that child marriage means anybody that marries under 18. It doesn't matter if they're 11, 15, 17. It's all child marriage, according to the WHO. So guess what? According to their definition, that is in the Bible. And you can get mad about that. You can throw a pissy fit if you want, but your denial doesn't negate God's word. I'm sorry. Hey, if somebody doesn't like that, they're welcome to unsubscribe or dislike the video, but don't hate me for just pointing out the facts. I mean, it's just that simple. Yeah, that's correct. That's correct according to the scriptures. But when the organs that like again, a lot of people don't know human biology and the development of the body. Like say for instance, a boy and a girl, when they first hit puberty, their sexual organs do not immediately mature. It happens after their pubic hair grows in. That happens first, and then the organs start to work. And isn't it weird how it also happens basically at the exact same time? Like between 12 to 14 for both boys and girls. Doesn't that show that the creator designed it that way, though? Like for the naysayers out there, doesn't that seem weird that it seems like whoever made humans, or even these guys out here who believe in evolution, doesn't it look like either evolution designed it this way for humans to be able to reproduce at this time period, or that God, the creators, designed humans to be able to reproduce at these ages? Like, I mean, seriously, let's take that into consideration here. If God intended for it to be around 20, well, why would he make human sexual beings like 8 years before that? And that doesn't make any sense. Again, people just don't think. Everybody out here is a brainwashed NPC. Like, hey, look, I believe whatever I'm told. The government's right. Don't ask questions. Said, can you bring Jack Smack on for interview? Yeah, hey, look, I've been asking Jack Smack to debate me for literally 2 years. And the dummy said, oh, I don't want to do it. Right? The dude will sit there and talk shit about me. But when a guy literally, what am I, under half of his age, right? I'm not even half of his age. And the dude's scared shitless from having a debate with me or even a conversation with me about free grace and about law keeping and so on and so forth, right? The dude absolutely refuses to talk to me, which I don't get why the hell that would be. Shows that he's a chicken shit coward. But yeah, y'all let him know, ask him that ETT wants to have a friendly chat. I'd even go on praise his channel. Hell, I'll go to friendly territory for him to have a conversation. But he's the one in denial, not me. He's the one who won't do it, not me. I'm open for the chat. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Luke. A lot of people are just ignorant and just not reasonable with themselves. Yeah, you're correct, Jay. Well, hell doesn't exist to begin with, right? Hell doesn't exist. But I know what you're referring to because I saw the Jackass 77, right? Jackass 77 put up a video regarding that. Oh, well, S word won't send the people to hell, which in an aspect he's right, but in an aspect he's wrong because there's not a hell that people burn when they die. That's a lie. That's the myth. That's not true. So again, the dummy just doesn't know what's going on. He just all he knows is sweet Jesus died for him, and well, that's it. All you got to do is believe that, and nothing you do is bad. The dude's a complete numbskull and imbecile. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Luke. Those people are just ignorant and docile, right? Again, the government wants an ignorant and docile um crowd, right? Or population, whatever word you want to use, right? That's what the government wants. They don't want people who are rational and able to think for themselves. They want just a bunch of brain rotted zombies who repeat what they're told after the master and don't ask questions. But we're here to challenge that. No, F all that. We need to stand up for what's right. We need to call these peons out. We need to call these liars out in public, right? And online. They need to be held accountable for their lies and for their hypocrisy. And guess what? When Christ comes back, they will be held accountable. The Bible says, I believe that's Revelation 6 chapter, it says, destroy them who destroy the earth. Right? There's going to come a day when God's going to bring judgment upon these men. And that's going to be a good day once that comes. And it's not too far from now. It's just around the corner. But anyway, I'm going to be wrap this stream up here at an hour and 20 minutes. If anybody, yeah, that's a good statement there, right? Age is just a number. You know what I find funny? One thing to comment on that before I go is everybody will sit there like and say, for instance, they'll tell you, oh, well, age don't matter, right? Like say, for instance, they might have their 35th birthday and somebody asked them how they feel about that turning 35 and they'll be like, it's just another day. It's just another day, right? Age don't really matter. But the ironic part is the same person will pretend that, oh, well, turning 16 from 15 is like a big deal or 17 to 18 is like a magical difference. But yet they'll pretend, oh, well, yeah, later on in life, age don't really matter. It's just another day. But earlier in life, oh, it makes all the difference. Like, I mean, seriously, like, is that not clear hypocrisy? Is that not undeniable hypocrisy and standard? Oh, so when you turn 18 from 17, that's a magical change that is life altering. You're now adults, but yesterday you were a kid. But oh, 34 to 35, it's just another day. I mean, come on, it's undeniable. This is complete hypocrisy, and anybody who's not willing to call that out, that person's just delusional, as Anger would say from Inside Out too. But they're just delusional. Inside joke. Right, right. That would be the go-to. Like say for instance, right? The age of consent shouldn't just be a set number that varies from location to location. It should just be regarding the science, the biological science. That's what God says. It's not a set number. It's just a biological thing. Like say for an example, when I was in the Pathfinder group, when I went to the SDA church, they tried to say, oh, well, the dating age is like 14, right? And, they'll talk to you about that stuff when you're 14. But the truth is, what the ironic part is? The guy they were saying that to, oh, well, when you're 14, we'll got to do, we'll talk about that. But yet the ironic part is the guy they were saying that to, when he's 13, he already has a girlfriend. So hold up a second. So like y'all didn't know about that? This guy already got a girlfriend? But now you're telling them, oh, you're, going into dating age now. Well, my question would be, since y'all apparently base your doctrine off the Bible, well, where does the Bible say that there's a certain age that you have to be before you get married or have sex or dating or marriage. Like, where's that in the Bible? Because as a scholar, I'll tell you that there is no set number in the Bible. There are perimeters, but there's not a set number. You have to be alive this many years before you can get married. It doesn't teach that. Just read Ezekiel chapter 16. Right? Ezekiel chapter 16, all it says is um, when God was comparing Israel to a little girl growing up into a woman, he compared her and said that once her breasts grew and her hair grew, she entered into the time of love. So it doesn't tell you how old you have to be or set a specific age. It's just a boundary, right? It could happen at 11, could be 12, could be 13, could be 14. It's different for every single person, but it's in a perimeter, and that's just according to the biological science that God created. Is there any church out there who wants to disagree with God's creation? You're welcome to do that. But you're adding and taking away from the book, right? Revelation 22, verse 18 and 19. Anybody who takes away from the book, God's going to take your name out of the book of life. Anybody who adds to the book, God's going to add to you the plagues written in the book. So again, a lot of these Christian groups and organizations are adding and taking away from God's word on a whole vast array of different subject matters, whether we're talking about salvation, the law keeping, this whole marriage problem, um, who salvation's for, so on and so forth. We could talk for hours about that. Right, right. I hear what you're saying. And that lines up with the scriptures, right? That lines up with the scriptures. You have to get the father's permission before you marry his daughter. And to some degree, they still practice that even today over here in the West. You have to, get to know the parents before you marry her. Over here, they don't require that, but it's a tradition that's held over here still too, but even more in Eastern countries and, Bible culture as well, or I should say Israelite culture. Okay. But anyway, if that being said, I'm gonna wrap the stream up there because it's an hour and 25 minutes. I have to get in at 4 o'clock here, so I'm gonna wrap this up for tonight. But another night, I'll just fire up another one. If anybody made it to the end of the stream, put hashtag science. Right over here, we're for the science over here. We're not for that anti-science. We're not for this religion of science, but we're for real science over here. All right, so hashtag science if anybody made it to the end of the live stream. You can put that down below in the comments. But anyway, I'm gonna wrap the stream up there. Everybody have a good night or day, depending on where you are.